Welcome back to 2CTV, your global news channel. We come to you guys with some breaking news, this time from the Middle East. The Islamic Republic of Iran is in chaos as there have been multiple hits on the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, up and down the country. There's an ongoing situation in the capital in Tehran. We're going to give you guys the live reports on the latest round of mess in Iran as the anti-IRGC elements continue to make their way towards the center of command to take control of the country and bring down the Islamic occupation. We're going to get your reaction in this live stream. There's a lot to cover, but the top advisor to the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei himself is still in hiding. He is currently living in a bunker. They have said that they have apparently moved him from the existing bunker to a new place because apparently the location might have been exposed. But Yahya Rahim Safavi, who is one of the top advisors, said that obviously we are not in a ceasefire. We are in a phase of war. No protocol, regulation, or agreement exists between us and the US, Israel, and others. It is possible that essentially Iran will make a move against the West. And after that war, he says, there will be not another one. So the statement is that they know this is the end, but they think they're going to win. Obviously, they know they're not going to win. Let's go to the south of Tehran as the IRGC was hit massively and the security decided to close off the whole of neighborhood but refused to evacuate the civilians. Let's go. Complete mess. The fact that they don't actually care about their own civilians is the biggest thing, by the way. And as you can see, the IRGC is toast. Brilliant. So this was the initial report from the south of Tehran. Multiple sites have been hit in the capital, but also across the country over the last few hours. There's a bit of a situation with the National Council. This is the Council of the Supreme Leader. Obviously, the Supreme Leader is not in action right now. He's completely gone. But the Larijani, who is basically the second person in command, he's the one running the show right now, putting his own life at risk, basically. Although Larijani himself is trying his best not to be out in public too much. He is obviously briefing the media and the press all the time, Al Jazeera and CNN and all the others. But he's officially currently the main face of the Iranian regime. And one thing to mention, actually, well, for those of you, in case you're not familiar with Larijani, he's had a number of roles throughout the last few decades. This is him. So he's basically the main guy right now, but he's also the main puppet. The president is not important. Nobody cares about the president in Iran or in the world because the role of the president is non-existent. It's basically just the face of the government. His job is just to impose income tax and things like that and fix the roads. Nothing actually real. So Larijani actually has more power than the President Pezeshkian. But a massive explosion was also erupted this was at the oil facilities, Shahran oil facilities, a major fuel storage in the northwest. Again, all the infrastructure is being hit, which is quite concerning. And I'm going to explain the consequences, which is already happening.
26 شهریور انبار نفت
Shahran. So the reason this is important is because, well, first things first, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard know that there's an ongoing war against them. That's why the Supreme Leader is still in hiding. The second reality is that this has caused the major disruptions across the country. So electricity goes out every few hours. Some people only have it for about 3 hours a day. Water, completely gone. It's a complete mess. Banks in a massive crisis. They're still not allowing everybody to withdraw cash. So there's a whole it's a series of round of attacks that is happening in terms of the infrastructure of Iran. But a lot of people are fed up as well, because while the anti-IRGC elements are continuing to attack, and they are being successful, obviously that means that normal people in Iran are being hit. Not in terms of the explosions, because they're all targeted, but in terms of the consequences, the lack of water, lack of job, lack of money, everything. But more areas were hit by the anti-Islamic Republic elements earlier on. Let's go to the next video. Final days, guys. This is the final countdown for the Islamic Republic. This is what I described earlier today on social media as the slow fall, or the slow death of the Islamic occupation. The way they came into power was a paramilitary coup in 1979, and the way they kept power always meant that the fall of the IRGC is not going to be a half an hour sort of scenario. It was always going to be a slow burner, but it is happening, and we know that they are completely panicking. Another report from northern Iran, that we also do have another video from a different angle. Let's quickly go to that. And then we're going to show you, the sad truth about what's happening to the people of Iran. We have a video we're about to show you shortly about a businessman who attempted to take his own life in public at one of the metro stations, the train stations. Before we show you that, let's go to the north of Iran. Now, of course, one of the other parts of the consequences is that a huge number of IRGC members, the Islamic Republic people, have now left the country. As you guys know, a lot of them are coming to the West, a lot of them are going to Canada, a lot of them are coming to the UK. In fact, if you look at the stats of Iranian asylum seekers on small boats from France to the UK, that's increased massively. Obviously, they're pretending to be Iranian asylum seekers, but in reality, they are the IRGC, the Islamic occupiers who basically left. Most of the families have been pushed out because they said it's probably safer for you to go abroad, live in the West, while the dads and the husbands continue to try to hold on to power a little bit. Another explosion and attack happened at the Tehran oil storage facility as well in Shahrareh. This is another video from the explosions. Let's go to the next one.
انبار تهران نگاه کن مشکل روغن بابا ببین خب مشکل روغنه.
I think we have also another video from Shahrareh, another angle which actually shows better. There we go. It's gone. Bye bye. Obviously, hitting the oil facilities will damage the IRGC, but it is affecting the everyday people. But this is the cost of doing a revolution against Islam. And people are aware. So, as I said, a lot of people are fed up. A lot of people who are trying to fight back against this regime. Some of them are not necessarily fighters. The video I'm about to show you is this old man, a businessman in Tehran, in the capital. He went to the metro station, actually on the tracks where the trains go, tried to set himself on fire. He's an entrepreneur who wanted to improve lives for other people. His bank account has been frozen by the regime for the past 18 months, causing him to basically give up on life. Now, this is happening quite regularly. When people are people in Iran are being cancelled, literally being cancelled by the regime. That's what they're fighting back. But of course, some people, like this poor man, is giving up on life. Saying, I'm tired of life. My life is ruined. I'm setting myself on fire. He's pouring petrol himself. they're going to go and intervene. They're trying to save him now, so. He's saying my life is ruined. But of course, fortunately, there were enough people there to stop him from doing what he wanted to do. And there is more reaction coming about this. Of course, the leadership are primarily focusing on suffocating the people who are doing the uprising against the regime. As I said, the banks are closed there primarily. Those who are anti-Islamic Republic, they're not allowed to have access to banks. They're not allowed to have access to anything. More arrests are happening. While the IRGC, the infrastructure is falling apart, the only thing they can do is underground, using their own militias to go and arrest thousands and thousands of ordinary Iranians just because they are against the Islamic occupation. Now, let's see what's happening with the reactions here. Terry says, thank you for your fact news and please be safe out there. Thank you very much, Terry. If we could also quickly go to the members of 2CTV Plus, of course, become a member by going on 2c.tv on the screen. The paramedic, what is this? Patriot says they should never have stopped last time. I hope they remove them soon. It's a slow burner, obviously, but the fight continues against the IRGC. Keeping the infrastructure together seems to be keeping the IRGC in power. As the money and staples run out, hopefully everyone will want them out. Well, everybody do want them out, but the only issue until now has been the fact that people in Iran are not armed. They don't have a Second Amendment. And so the strategy or the tactic right now, short term, is to suffocate the regime first. Of course, the supreme leader is no longer around. And you've got Larijani, who's running the show, and he's not the most competent man. His family are very influential in the IRGC, but he himself is a little bit wishy-washy. Fingers crossed this is where the IRGC ceases to exist, that they have been in power far too long. Yeah, well, that's why. I mean, the longer they went, the longer it will take to remove them as well, because they've been grabbing everything. And the first thing that you had to do, which basically Israel did, was to get rid of the proxies outside the country. You get rid of the proxies, you get rid of the support, and the Americans essentially under President Trump forced China and Russia not to publicly back Iran. Now China still sends stuff to the Islamic Republic, but Putin said, well, I'm going to stay away. I'm not going to get involved. That's how you start. Then you basically damage the military sites and the defense system, which Israel did. And now, of course, this is the next phase of war, which is to bring down the infrastructure, which is the most important thing, which is also the most painful phase of the conflict for ordinary people. Haberbock says, let us hope that this is over soon for the people's sake. Yeah, well, it's still going to take a few months. It's still going to take some time, but you can't really have a timeline on it. I wonder what the country is going what country is going to rescue the Ayatollahs? Well, there's a few. By that point, if the supreme leader, obviously he's still in the bunker, right? If he's able to come out, either by some sort of deal to let him run away, or somehow he finds a way to run away, he himself, Khamenei, is not able to go to a country like Canada. A lot of the IRGC family members and all those guys, they're going to go to the UK, they're going to go to Canada, they're going to go to France, some in Germany, not many. But Khamenei himself can't really go to any of these countries. It's too obvious. So the only other options for him will be countries like Venezuela, for example. Back in the day, one option would have been Russia, but it's unlikely. It's still possible, but not really. Venezuela is one of the main options. There are some Arab countries that he could go to, but not many, because the Arab world is changing and the Abraham Accords and everything else. He can't really go to Qatar. I mean, he can, but it's not a sustainable option because he wouldn't be able to trust Qatar because President Trump is trying to keep Qatar closer Doesn't mean he trusts Qatar, but it's a strategy to keep them closer, move them away from the IRGC. So there are not going to be many options for Khamenei. And that's the case if it's still going to be alive and leave the country, because it's unlikely. Firstly, he could be dead right now. We haven't heard from him like weeks, right? We know he's in a bunker. We don't know if he's alive. Even if he's alive, he could just die because he's very old and he's very ill. Or they could catch him. So I don't think he's going to be able to leave the country. He's going to die, and a lot of people want to make sure in Iran that he will be alive to see the end of his regime rather than die beforehand. Because this is you're a great man. Thank you very much for that, PC. And Mr. Rainbow says, these videos are hard to watch. I'm crying. Thank you for giving us the news that we need to see. I mean, especially the video about the businessman who's had enough. We don't know if he's right now alive, if he was able to have a second attempt, but there are many people like him. Many others obviously are fighting, but many others who are helpless, who are powerless, they are giving up. They love their country, they stay in Iran, but they are taking their own lives. Sean says water will run out by September, I have heard. Yeah, I mean, by the end of August, essentially layman terms, there will not be any more water, because this is the whole next phase, which is about the suffocation. Which, by the way, again, it does mean that normal people are suffering, but they're using it as a motivation, technically, because they know they've got nothing to lose. October at the latest, the Israelis are desperate to help them, but their hands are tied at the moment. Yeah, I agree. Considering that the whole Gaza operation, the Gaza occupation operation became a little bit bureaucratic in Israel, inside the Israeli government over the last few days. We've been talking about the idea of starting the occupation of Gaza for like 2 weeks now, right? But there's been a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of internal politics. And the head of the IDF, Zamir, is finally doing it. So we'll see within the next week or so, the Gaza operation accelerate, see what happens there, and then the supreme leader probably has many doubles. Yeah, but it wouldn't help him, because you technically usually need doubles in peace times. Well, not necessarily peace times, more like Cold War times, where you kind of need to send your doubles out. And they have done it before. Saddam used to do it all the time. But when you're desperate, even Saddam Hussein was not really able to use his doubles when he himself was hiding in a hole. Because people knew, the Americans knew, while he's hiding. If someone walks around the streets looking like Saddam, well, then they're going to know it's not him. Or they'll probably just take him out just in case. So having doubles right now, when you're supposed to be hiding, is not going to help. But if you mean, well, for a situation where he wants to get out of the country, yeah, he's done. It's over. There's no other way for Khamenei. Did someone just say nuke Iran? Yeah, that's the only solution left. Don't nuke Iran. That's a terrible idea. Stop using nuke. As Sonia says, when the government leaves, they will take everyone's money with them. That tends to happen. When the withdrawal from Afghanistan started, £90 billion was taken and people were left with nothing. Yeah, so, I mean, there is a way to fix this if there is for once, actual cooperation by the international community. It's not going to happen because Canada, under Mark Carney, France under Emmanuel Macron, Britain with Keir Starmer, these guys are not necessarily going to be making a move against the IRGC. I'm not talking about ground invasion or military action. I'm talking about diplomatically. That they're not going to get involved. They're not. The only thing you could do is if all the major countries get together, freeze their assets, not only freeze their assets properly, but keep it frozen. When Iran is free, give it back. That's the only practical option. Now, Americans are in favor of doing that. And Germany is in favor of doing that. But can Germany and America convince the others? The others don't want to get involved. At best, they are terrified of what could happen in Canada, in the UK, in France. They're scared. At best, they're scared. Politicians. But having said that, there's a whole new wave of solutions. And that's because we do live in a globalized world. The problem is that sleeper cells of the IRGC are everywhere, even Australia, New Zealand. But there are new ways to fight against this. It's no longer the 1950s or even the 1970s. Times have changed. Free Iran from Islam, yes. Thanks for that. Now, Robert says most of Canada will be part of the US soon. Gary also says Marcani is an a-hole. That's factual. That's a factual statement. It's not just an opinion. If we go back to the members, what are you guys talking about? Dale says hopefully not the UK. Well, depends. Wait, not the UK what? Is it about the... But they're going to come to the UK, yeah. Just not Khamenei himself. Australia will probably take him. Our Prime Minister is stupid enough. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I forgot to add Australia to that list. The list of... it's already happened. A lot of the... Since June, May, June, when the war started in Iran, we have had many of the IRGC relatives, members, their junior members and family members have been sent out to, as I mentioned, Canada, the UK, and then a bit of France, but Australia as well. Australia is on the list. So there's a lot of them who are in Australia. By the way, it's not the first time because somehow certain countries were always the safe haven. Even in the 80s and 90s, the first 10, 20 years of the Islamic Republic, the IRGC had active terrorist elements in all these countries, including Australia. In fact, there was a massive attack outside at the Iranian embassy in Australia. A lot of people always talk about the siege of the Iranian embassy in London. That was a whole different thing anyway. But because that's become like a famous story. Oh, London, Iranian embassy. But actually the situations in Australia, situations we've had in France and in Germany, a lot of assassinations. So this was the IRGC terrorists coming all the way to the West to take out anybody who was against them. And that was the early days. And now they have massive ground. They have headquarters in London, in the capital of the former British Empire. There is a building, a massive building, which is publicly permitted by the British government. I'm going to show it to you. This is in central London, Maidavale. And I mean, a lot of you guys are familiar with this because we have actually talked about this a lot. And we have actually been at this outside this building to show you guys what's going on. This is the Islamic Centre of Britain, of England, actually, it's called. As you can see on the other, it's quite a small sign, but you can see Islamic Centre of England. This huge building belongs to the Islamic Republic. It's essentially the secondary unofficial embassy. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a mosque. It's supposed to be an Islamic center. It's funded and controlled by the Iranian regime in the middle of London. The enemy of the UK has basically an Islamic headquarters, and they do everything from there. Their training, their grooming, their terrorist funding. And during the lockdown, COVID in 2020, they got caught because what they did, because they had a charity status in order to have an Islamic center. They also created an actual limited company. So they made it a business. On the company's house, they created a limited liability company in order to steal from British taxpayers when the British government and many other governments were giving out free money to people, furlough money, for people not to work. So anybody who was working at the Islamic terrorist headquarters in Maidavale in London were also getting free money from the British people. The story came out, we exposed it on 2CTV like in 2021. Eventually some of the newspapers reported this after what we exposed. Nothing happened. Nothing. It's the same British state that refuses, to this day, refuses to designate the IRGC as a terrorist organization. Meanwhile, even Canada, when that idiot Justin Castro Trudeau was Prime Minister, he was forced, and I'm not going to give him any credit, he was forced to recognize that the IRGC are a terrorist organization. If even Canada does it, how embarrassing is it for the British government? So there are so many reasons that the West is in a complete mess, and this is basically self-inflicted. The Western establishment, the deep state, is doing it. It's not because people in Britain or people in Canada are happy to help the IRGC. There's no consent. It's not like people gave permission. PC says, Maya, the US has not had any relations with Iran since 1980s. And why does the UK have relations? So, yeah, you ask fair questions. There are so many theories about this, but you can only speculate. But there's a number of reasons why, when Britain started doing this, and then as part of the European Union, this was the EU trying to compete with the US when it comes to geopolitics, because the EU, the main plan is to create the United States of Europe. And partly goes to that. The other part of it is that the European establishments knew that it was their doing. Now, obviously, CIA helped. In 1979, Jimmy Carter's CIA trained the Islamists to take over Iran. Jimmy Carter's excuse was that, well, the communists, backed by the Soviet Union, were basically attacking the Shah, who was supposed to be an ally to America. They didn't want the communists to take over. So they thought they could manipulate the Islamists. They thought the Islamists are idiots. That backfired. So that's the excuse from the CIA, their mistake in 1970s to do a coup. France gave a safe haven, an actual safe house to Khomeini, the first supreme leader. He was living in Paris while communicating with the French government and MI6 and CIA. The European establishment have had a whole different level of manipulation compared to even CIA, even the deep state in America, that tend not to be good at long-term planning. Ever since the 20th century, after the Second World War, when America became the world police, the face of the world police, because it was a superpower, the British Empire had to step back, and then the British Empire dissolved itself. America has not been very good. America was never supposed to be a globalist country in that sense. America was supposed to be an isolationist, libertarian country. They were forced, essentially, because the Brits said we can't really be the face anymore, the British Empire. Since then, any move led by America has not really been successful in terms of foreign interventions. There have been some exceptions, but most of the time, foreign interventions, not good. Long-term planning, it's not in their blood. Whereas the British Empire, the peak days of the British Empire, 19th century, for example, it was in the blood of the British Empire and that political class to rule the world. Whether you agree or disagree with the British Empire, they were competent at ruling the world. They were competent at long-term planning because they didn't really have to worry about the modern democracy, which slowly started to have parliamentary democracy in Britain, but that was way before. So Britain could do it. The reason that right now the European establishments are troublemakers is because they still have their own deep states. Britain still run by the Foreign Office and the Palace. And when we say the Palace, we don't necessarily mean King Charles himself, the people in the Palace, linked to the Foreign Office. These guys still do long-term planning, but a lot of people are saying we don't really have faith in the British deep state compared to the days when they used to rule over India, for example. But we do know that the Americans are not very good at long-term planning. So Jimmy Carter's CIA's excuse that, yeah, we were just looking short-term, I fully understand that. They were idiots. It backfired on CIA. But why did France and Britain, for example, manipulate? And they're still doubling down. They still have a relationship with the Islamic Republic. They continue. They think they can win. They can't even run their own countries in Europe, these establishments. Anyway. Thought Provocateur says, do you see an IMEC going through in the near future? I tend not to speculate the incoming events because it's always embarrassing, but we shall wait. Now, there's Let's go to the non-super chats as well quickly. Some other people are asking about Reza Pahlavi, whether he will definitely be king. Again, I'm not going to speculate on that. It's all down to the referendum that will take place in Iran after the Islamic occupation basically ends. Those countries under the Commonwealth are pretty much allied with the Communist Chinese Party. Not all of them, obviously, but some tend to be, but not all of them. I mean, Pakistan. Some people are talking about the Quran for some reason. It always comes up, regardless of what we're talking about. Oh dear God. There's some anti-Christian nonsense in the live chat as well. Charles should abdicate and allow William to make Britain great again. I think people have a lot of faith in William because he's slightly different to his dad and is more modern. But actually, he's also very modern. Let's not forget. I think on paper he would be slightly better than Charles, but the damage that any of the new modern monarchs will cause to their own monarchy, it's still like a snowball. It can't be stopped. William has his own. You can't really call him woke, but he's progressive. He's very progressive compared to his dad. Compared to King Charles, yes, he's still relatively. He's more sensible only because he's emotionally more stable. King Charles, since childhood, he was not necessarily emotionally stable. He was a very sensitive boy. And you can still see it, and he gave it to Harry. William seems to be slightly more emotionally put together, although that could also mean he's a psycho. Poor guy. But he's still very much modern and progressive. So he's not necessarily going to take Britain back to the Victorian days. He's not going to be like Queen Victoria, let's just say. So he still talks about the environment as well, like his dad. But that's not the biggest issue compared to like everything else that they could do to bring down their own monarchy. Anyway, so this was the latest update from the chaos inside Iran. We're going to keep you guys posted on this channel as usual. Don't forget to download the 2C TV app from your app stores, the home of geopolitical news, to get access to everything, including documentaries, the podcast, and our chat forum. I'm Maya 2C, and we are the media.